Good.
All right. Everyone survived the weekend. Such amazing weather, but all right. Well, let's get started. I will call the JPL meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. The only item on the agenda for this evening is to consider the 2021 Human Resources Manual. So, Tyler, I will turn that over to you to kind of get us started in the conversation, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. So as you may know, every year toward the end of the calendar year, I bring forward the proposed changes for the upcoming HR manual. So this is the 5th year I've done it. Each year we have a little less that I bring forward just because I think it's getting at a point where I feel pretty content with the changes. So I would just ask the JPL committee, would you like me to go through the bullet points in my memo, or would you just like me to open it up for questions?
Do you want to maybe go through fairly quickly, and then if we have any questions, you can go from there?
Sure. I'll just do very high level, and then you can ask questions. So the big ones I highlighted. One, we just have a federal mandate where now we do a background checks for all those positions that require a CDL, which is primarily in the Public Works Department. We clarified some vacation carryover language for employees who aren't full-time 40-hour per week employees when it comes to vacation carryover. So we clarified that it is on a prorated basis for them. So for instance, if you're working 30 hours per week, if you have more than 30 hours of vacation still remaining toward the end of the year, you can only carry over up to 30 hours for the next year. So we just clarify that for employees. The big one, which I can get to
Tyler,
more.
Tyler, that's because 40-hour-a-week employees can carry over 40 hours, correct?
Correct. So our concern here is if we have like a 20-hour per week employee, we don't want them carrying over 40 hours of vacation because that would be difficult to manage their schedule with that.
And when do people start earning vacation and benefits? Is it at 20 hours?
It is at 20 hours, correct.
Okay.
And it's at a prorated basis. So typically when an employee starts employment, if they're full-time, they have 2 weeks of vacation. So a part-time 20-hour employee would only have a week of vacation to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Next would be the vacation accrual schedule. So, I just want to bring this forward to kind of let you know some of the trends that I'm seeing both within Milwaukee and the village itself. So anytime we have an employee that leaves, I do an exit interview. And especially with a lot of the employees that are fairly new with the village and might have left, or if we have a new employee and I go through the benefits, a very common thing I hear is how long it takes to pick up a 3rd week of vacation. When an employee starts with the village, they start with 2 weeks of vacation and it takes them 7 years. Based on hearing this, I did some market research, and I would say about 1/3 of municipalities pick up a 3rd week of vacation sooner than us. And typically that's around year 5. 2/3 are about similar to us, where it takes 7 years. So I would say that we're still in the majority on that. But it is something I continue to hear more and more. I talked with President Rosick earlier today about this item, who asked about what does City of Milwaukee do. So I did some research today, and they actually pick up after 4 years of service, you get up to 17 days of vacation, 3 weeks and 2 days. So they're even a little bit quicker. But a lot of times we don't necessarily benchmark with the city of Milwaukee, but that was a question she had. So, so I just wanted to put that out there. The other thing that I've noticed since being here is that the library has a different vacation accrual schedule than all of our other village employees. So that's just another thing. I would like them to be closer together if possible. So that's why I proposed the changes that they are. I tried to do research to figure out why do we have, 7 years as the mark to pick up 3 years or 3 weeks of vacation. I couldn't really find a reasoning. So the 7 and 7, it just seems like an arbitrary, maybe it was from union negotiations and that stuck for all employees. I'm not sure on that. So I just want to let you know it's a trend that I'm seeing. And, I just wanted to put it in the HR manual for discussion and see which direction the board would like to go on that.
Is this applying to the union? No.
Would this apply to the union? Was that
Yeah.
the question?
Is this a change to union employees too?
Yeah. So, we'll go through the union negotiations with them, but this would probably be something that they would take a look at. If you look in the HR manual, we have our police command officers that have a vacation schedule, and we mirror that with the union officers. So that would be something that we would take a look at mirroring, but that would be discussed in negotiations.
Right. I mean, I don't want to put it in here and just give it and without, it should be an item we put forward in negotiations. So
yeah, in the union contract, they have their own vacation accrual schedule. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So this doesn't apply to union employees. If we add an extra week at year 5 instead of year 7, it doesn't apply to the union employees.
Right. That would have to be part of the negotiations.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions on that part?
No questions for me. I'd be in favor of being, creating more of an incentive for employees to come to Shorewood. So I would be in favor of a shorter span for that extra week of vacation.
I do have a question about union employees, but I also would like to, I think compensation wise in general, we're pretty competitive with other surrounding communities. Would you agree, Tyler?
Are we just talking about village staff as a whole, or are we talking about union employees?
Village staff.
Village staff as a whole. Yeah, I mean, we do a wage market analysis every 3 years. And I've looked at that twice now during my 5 years here. And I would say almost all positions, we're exactly where we need to be. There might be just a few positions that, maybe next year that Becky and I would further discuss, but majority of them are right in line where they need to be based on that market research.
Yeah, I mean, I think vacation is definitely an important part of the whole package, but it sounds like right now, the way that we're sort of in line with the other majority of the Milwaukee municipalities. And I don't know that people are leaving a job because of an extra week of vacation in either way, to come to Shorewood or to leave Shorewood. Like, people don't leave jobs, people leave bosses. And so, I would really want to just make sure before we're rushing into an extra week of vacation that we are doing other things to make sure that we're a desirable place for people to work, not just vacation. I mean, and I don't get me wrong, I think that, that is an important part of the whole package, but I think that there's other factors to it. So I mean, I think being, sort of right in step with other communities, which is what you're saying right now is where we are, makes me feel comfortable.
I'm actually in favor of giving people an extra week at 5 years because, 2 weeks vacation is not very much. And I just feel like for work-life balance, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't take a job if I had to wait 7 years to get a 3rd week of vacation. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm at a different phase of my life, but 2 weeks vacation seems chintzy to me. So I'm okay with the 3 weeks, but.
So based on that, I'll leave it in, but just know, at the board, if the board wants to have a further discussion with that, I'm more than, happy to do that. But I just thought it would be helpful to let you know some of the comments that I've been receiving in regards to that. If I move forward then, dental insurance, we have a new insurance vendor that this is the 2nd year that we're using. In reviewing our insurance agreements, there's a recommendation that for our dental insurance contract that we get in compliance. Basically, the contract currently states that if you have a plan that is fully funded by the employer, no matter if someone's waiving coverage or not, that they have to be on the plan. Well, we have a number of employees that waive dental coverage, and because right now the single plan is supposed to give full 100% coverage to the employee, technically those employees that are waiving should still be on the plan, meaning the village should be paying for them on the plan. So I'm just changing that contributions instead of being 100%, which we're talking about just under $40 total per month that the employer pays for a single plan on dental. So I'm changing that contribution so it's 95% employer, 5% employees. So this means any employees that are on our single dental, in the past, they haven't paid anything. So with this proposal, they would have to start paying a few dollars per month for the plan. It would be a pretty nominal impact for the employee, but it's something that we should do in order to comply with that contract. Any questions on that one?
So right now, like if I had insurance through my spouse, I'd be double insured for dental.
Well, right now you would just like if you were that scenario, you would waive coverage, and then the village wouldn't be paying anything, and you wouldn't be paying anything. But based on what the contract states, they say that if we're 100% funding, or that you have the opportunity to fund, that you should still be on our dental insurance anyways, and the village shouldn't be paying for it. My point is, what's the point of someone having double coverage? If someone wants to go to their spouse's plan, let them. But I don't want the village to all of a sudden pick up X number of dental insurance for single people that don't want to be on the plan just because of that contract language. So by changing the contribution, we will no longer be contractually obligated to pay.
Wait, so if you have insurance some other place, you can waive your dental,
Yes, and we have a number of employees that do that right now.
but single people,
Correct.
this just applies to single people.
Correct. Family won't change at all.
So right now, single people can't waive even if they want to, and this would let them waive.
Sorry, no. So right now, so if you're
Am I the only one not getting this?
sorry, I had just me personally, I had to ask R&R 3 times before I got it. So right now for single, if you're on single dental, village pays 100% of the premium, which is just under $40. So let's just say $40 for nice easy numbers, okay? If someone waives coverage, they can just waive coverage. The village then doesn't pay anything. The employee doesn't pay anything. They're just offered dental coverage. What the contract states, and this is what we're in violation of right now, is that if we offer a plan that is fully 100% funded by the employer, that even if someone wants to waive coverage, that they can't. They have to still be on the, they have to be on the plan, and the employer has to pay for it. So the part where we're not meeting the contract is we're letting them waive coverage. And we
Okay,
shouldn't.
I get it now. Okay, I get
Okay.
it.
So by changing it from the 100% to the 95%, now we can contractually allow them to waive coverage. So that should be a pretty simple change. And like I said, nominal impact for employees. Okay. We're re-clarifying that if someone takes a leave of absence without pay, instead of say, that would be, or we would say 30 calendar days instead of 30 working days. We think 30 calendar days is just a lot more straightforward. When you say 30 calendar or 30 working days, there's some questions of what is defined as a working day. You know, you think of DPW in the winter, if they're called in for a snowstorm, does that count as a working day? If we have a holiday in the middle, does that count as a working day? So from an interpretation perspective, it becomes a little difficult. Calendar days is very straightforward. So we just want to make that change. We think it's going to be just easier to implement. The next one, just clarifying that the village's practice that employees will need to use their accruals to pay for the first 3 days before workers' comp picks up. A good chunk of municipalities in the area do this. It's a motivator for employees to get their work restrictions right away. Because if they don't, they're on leave and they're using their own accruals, and employees don't want to use their own accruals. So it's a motivator for them to get those work restrictions right away. The benefit for the village is, as long as we get an employee, if they have a work-related injury, if we get them back to work within the first 3 days, workers' comp doesn't pay anything for time away. Once they're gone for more than 3 days, it then kicks in and will pay for those expenses, which hurts our mod factor. Last few years, we've really worked hard on our mod factor. That's a big contributor factor on what we pay for workers' comp insurance that you'll see in the budget. And there's a few reasons why we're significantly getting decreases. But one, we have been really working hard on the mod factor and getting people back to work sooner in that 1 to 3 day period. And this will just help us a little bit more by making it known to and reminding employees that, you know, within those first 3 days, if you are gone, you need to use your accruals, your sick time, and then hopefully you can return with some light duty restrictions or maybe no restrictions at all. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then the return or the next one goes right along the lines with that comment, just reminding employees to remember a return to work form. The last one is about pay ranges. We do this annually, but I know there's been 1 or 2 questions about, you know, how we go about updating the pay ranges. So I just wanted to provide that context. Every 3 years, we do that market wage research. And then may make other modifications. Seeing that we have a DPW study we just did, a police department study that's about to be completed, and then an internal review of village operations. I'm proposing just to wait a year for any proposed implementation on that wage study because responsibilities may shift due to those studies. So I just want to wait a year on that review, but otherwise, we just modified the pay ranges based on the cost of living that was put in the budget, which is the 1.5%. And that's it for my presentation. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have one question. I mentioned this in budget to Mark, and then I noticed in the HR manual that there are times that some employees have like a village cell phone when they're on call. Actually, I think it's DPW employees, but I think it might be able to be a cost savings to think about is removing landlines and providing employees. Well, I shouldn't say providing. I would assume, and that this could be a wrong assumption, but most employees have their own cell phone, and so subsidizing their cell phone bill in part of their compensation package. Um, to be able to have just one phone. So, if I needed to get in touch with you, Tyler, I would, never call your office phone. I would always call your cell phone, and then the village would compensate you for, maybe it's 50% of your cell phone bill. So I just was wondering if you could kind of clarify that language in the HR manual about cell phones and cell phones for people on call, it looked like, and then any other cell phone usage.
I don't have it up in front of me, but Mark, maybe I think it's like $5 a month that the employees are paid for having their own phone for be on call. I think it was a DPW practice and maybe even in their union contract where that originated. So, and then we have a few department heads based on the nature of their work, like the village manager or the DPW director, I know for sure, where there's that cell phone reimbursement as well, because they use their phone so much for work. So other than that, there's nothing else that we're doing for phone reimbursement at this time.
But then are there other employees that have a landline?
Yeah, like Village Hall, pretty much all employees have a landline there. If you go over to Village Center, most of those employees, at least full-time employees, have a landline. DPW, I don't see Leanne on the call. I think we have most landlines like for a department, since a lot of them don't necessarily have their own office. So like, I think if you go in the water or utility area, like there's a utility landline, or the forestry area, they would have a forestry landline, I believe. So, and at the police department, I know there's for the command officers, there's a landline for each of those offices. And then there's the, where all the police officers, there's like a few workstations that they can go to check email or fill out their reports. And I think there's one or a few landlines in that general area. So, probably for a good half of the employees, you could do something, we could do more research about that if the board wanted to move that direction. I would say that's for a municipality, that would be a pretty new practice. That doesn't mean that we can't investigate it. But it would be harder to find a model to go off of that. But, that's certainly something that we can look into. I think the one hesitation that some employees would have, and as you mentioned, it would be an option. So now all employees, it sounds like employees wouldn't have to do it. But I think some would be uncomfortable having their personal phone number out there for the public to see. But if it would be an optional service, then, they're making that choice.
Or something maybe we test and see, if that would work for all employees or some employees. And I don't know, it was just a thought that I had at budget, and then reading through the manual, it was just something else was just trying to explore other ways we could, find some cost savings. So
sure. Let me do this when we get in the next year or two. On our IT replacement list are the landline phones, actually, and maybe that's where it came up. I'm not sure, but that could be a question I work with Bayside IT on to kind of get an analysis on what that would look like. And when we get closer to that, I can report out to the board and give them an update.
That'd be great.
I mean, sometimes it's hard, like people call and they don't know exactly who they need to talk to, and maybe like if you called a general number and they connected you to Bart, but really you needed to talk to Justin and you're on Bart's cell phone, how would he transfer you to Justin? You know?
It's a good question.
I would say that the personal aspect of it too, people calling, could be calling at all hours, and you might not be in a position where you want to take a phone call and you don't recognize the number and you take that call, or, there could be a lot of issues, I think, with that, but, I guess it's worth investigating. But I could see a lot of just people not being interested in having their number public and then being called at all hours of the day or night.
Or they just don't answer a number they don't know after 5 o'clock or whatever that time frame is. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely pluses and minuses to it, but I think, just to explore, could that work? I mean, I know like my kids don't know what a landline is, so at some point, we may want to consider it. So
Sure.
I had a question on, it's page 16 of the packet under page 10 of the manual, recruitment, selection, and orientation. And I know there's an EEOC statement behind this saying that we comply with the EEOC, but I'm wondering, when we talk about recruitment and application, whether we should add some language in there about making an extra effort to recruit for underrepresented groups, and I don't know, and really, especially, I think that's especially important in police, but really throughout the village. So I don't know exactly what or where to add it, but I thought it might be something worthwhile adding in when we talk about recruitment, because it is more than just an EEOC pledge. It's, that we want to have a diverse workforce, basically.
I completely agree with that point. And actually right now we don't have a standard operating procedure on our recruitment hiring. So that's something that Becky and I just had my evaluation, and we put as a goal to complete in this upcoming year. And as we do the EDI training and, as we continue to work with the HRC, I think that's a procedure I would love to review with both groups. So I'll definitely make that point in the procedure, but I can also add that point in the HR manual too, to make that a more visible goal and objective for the village. Yeah. So I can add that in between this meeting and next meeting for the board.
Sure. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
Trustee Ursink, did you have any further questions?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need a motion and a vote so that we can, when it moves to full board, we meet it? I can move to approve the HR manual.
Second. Oh, sorry.
No, good.
I was second, whatever. I thought you were done. Sorry.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So motion passes 3-0, and so we will end we're on the same Zoom. So and the JPL committee meeting at 6:29, a minute to spare, and move over to Trustee Menta for the Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay. Actually, I have questions since we did adjourn, but
sorry.
I'll call Budget and Finance to order. But for the employees who were quarantined for COVID, are they using accruals, or are they getting paid, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, I can answer that. So under the EPSLA, anyone that was a close contact can get up to 10 days paid, and that's directly through the federal government.
Okay.
And they reimburse us for initially paying them. So they get up to 10 days worth paid, where they don't have to use their accruals or anything. Anything beyond the 10 days, then they would need to use their accruals.
Okay, and it's not 14 work days, it's 14 total days. So That should make it. So we actually get reimbursed for that. That's great. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about third quarter, and then, we'll see if people have some questions. I did want to spend some time on the capital projects. That's the only, and I had a couple questions, but why don't you, take 5 or 10 minutes. You got to unmute, Mark.
Can't read my lips, huh? Yeah, I'd be happy to. Have a good evening to everybody. In general, ironically, from a fiscal perspective, this year is not challenging to the village for a number of reasons. On page 2 of the financial report, I created a table that kind of summarizes the most significant items, and accounts for about $232,000 of favorable budget net, out of what we're currently projecting to be about $292,000 of favorable budget outcomes this year. So those are the big categories. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to at least glance at that. I did make an effort to write up a narrative on each of those categories to give a little more context. But while some revenues were down, some expenditures were also down. Plus we had some big permit revenue come in, one-time permit revenue, which is really the big mover here. Absent that, we'd be very close to break even with our budget outcomes. So as with any annual budget, there's some pluses, some minuses, and then a smattering of smaller items throughout the budget. So I guess I'd be happy just to take questions since we have a relatively limited time frame here.
I had one question, then I'll get to Trustee Carpenter. What is going on with Municorp? You say they're suspended, or they were suspended. Are they open now, or? They
are. They were suspended during Safer at Home. I don't recall the exact date that they reestablished open court sessions, but I think they were suspended for 3 months until June. But they are resuming, relatively speaking, normal operations since then.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Carpenter.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. One is about the crossing guards. So it's obviously we, do not have the crossing guards, but was the contract for this year, was it 70, the total contract? I thought it was more than that.
90 something.
Because in the paragraphs where you kind of talked about the reasons for the various expenditures and changes, it says that our portion, like the district is refunding 35, I think 35. So, and we paid half. So
yeah, I can look that up real quick here on my computer. I don't want to misquote you.
I thought it was more than 70 too.
Yeah, so did I.
Because of COVID, we didn't have crossing guards for a certain period of time. And so if you remember from our last meeting or one meeting, so the cost of the contract was 90 something thousand, but we ended up paying less because we didn't use crossing guards for the whole school year. Is that correct?
Yeah, my budget for 2020 shows 95,000 for crossing guard services. And then that's offset by 47,500 of reimbursements from the school district as under the MOU. But since they suspended crossing guard services, we haven't incurred any of those costs. So, we really don't know what's to come in 2021. So we're still budgeted as if crossing guards will be needed throughout the year in 2021. But yeah, we're going to go about 9 months without crossing guards. So,
I mean, I would guess that we only had crossing guards for January and February because the last day of school was March. Well, I mean, in a couple days in March, but
You're probably correct.
so I don't know. It just seemed that number just seems a little bit low to me.
No, that would make sense because if
Thanks.
it's,
Okay.
oh, well, I don't know. Do we have them during the summer too?
There's some limited service during the summer.
Yeah, I
But
mean, if you-
I'm showing we had $23,740 in actual expenses this year. And that's year to date without any projections for additional costs at this point for 2020. So, the village portion of that is about $12,000 where we were anticipating spending about $47,000. So hence the $35,000.
Oh, I see. Okay, so our savings is the 35.
Yeah, that's
not our portion. I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you. And then I just had one question about, thank you for clarifying that, Mark. Sorry, I was not thinking that way. But would you mind just talking a little bit about the postage and voting supplies? Obviously, postage was a significant increase. And I don't know if Sarah can maybe elaborate on this too, but I know that there were a fair number of residents that deposited their ballots in the in the white box, and I don't know if that's any savings to us if things are not postmarked. I'm not exactly sure, but I would assume that I don't know what things will be like in April, but that people will feel similarly to how they felt in the fall. So, should we be encouraging more people to use that white drop box? Is it, I don't know. I just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that particular item.
It's my understanding that absentee ballots require that the village provide a stamped return envelope. So how they choose to return it, oh, there you are, Sarah, really doesn't impact our costs because we have to provide that stamped envelope when we mail out the absentee ballot. Is that correct, Sarah?
Correct. It's statutorily required for us to put postage on the return envelope. So we could look at possibly having envelopes, that only go through the mail. Then we get charged for it. It's something we've never looked at because we've never had the volume that we've had. But yeah, every envelope has to have postage on.
And thank you. That's sort of what I thought, but I just thought I'd ask. And then do we have, was it 11,000 that we will be able to be reimbursed for postage? And
Yeah, just short of $11,000 under the WEC CARES grant for eligible election materials, which is largely postage, envelopes, ballot costs. Anything else you can think of, Sarah, in the big category?
We approved that additional DS200. So most of that got covered by that grant. And then most of it went towards the postage that we did not anticipate for.
thank you.
Trustee Erskine, do you have any questions before I ask a couple?
I'm wondering where we ended up with the DPW mechanic position. I remember us saying that we were going to kind of talk about this at a later date, and I don't know if we I don't remember us kind of revisiting that. Have we come to a conclusion or discussed that further?
Yeah, that was a 2021 budgetary issue, and that position, as currently stands, was eliminated or unfunded, however you want to phrase that. And then additional funds were provided to support contracted mechanical service costs. So that could certainly be if you need additional review during the budget presentation, we can touch on that as well for public comment. But as far as this budget goes, the position was vacant. It's included in the projections as being vacant through the end of the year. That and the other vacancy at the time were the first vacancies of 2020, and those two positions will ultimately cover the vacancy factor approved by the board in last year's budget. So not really a savings per se, because we were already planning on about 6 months of staff vacancies in the budget. So a pretty nominal budget impact from that respect.
I wanted to point out, I had a conversation with Mark earlier, and looking at the library budget, that the library was really able to adjust expenditures for the time that they were closed. And I hadn't realized, Mark told me that 80% of their staff is part-time or hourly. So I just think that's, given uncertainties around COVID and all that sort of stuff, that may be something the board may want to consider in terms of DPW staffing, that if we had more part-time positions, we'd have more flexibility to kind of adjust, as things change. But I had a question about the fringe DPW. This is on page 22, because salaries are projected to be a little bit under, about 8,000 under the budget, but fringe is like 23,000 over. So was it like just people who you thought were not going to be on our benefits and then chose to be on our, I mean, why is there that discrepancy?
Well, that's always a challenge when we're preparing a budget, as we kind of roll all DPW employees into a general group, except those that only do specialized services, and then kind of share out costs based on trends. But when it comes down to who actually works in what division, be it in the public works division, in the water division, sewer division, plus potentially enrollment changes, that amount would be less than one staff person changing enrollments. I don't know exactly what, if there were any deviations from last year's budget to this year's budget as far as election participation, but yeah, just it's a bit of a variation. Wages are in dollars, but benefits track with hours, so sometimes I can get a little out of sync with the wages, depending on who's working exactly where.
Okay, and the TID revenues were different than budget. I was a little confused by that.
Right. Well, one of the things that we're always challenged with is that I've got to try to guess what the tax rate's going to be in August and put together an estimate of what TID revenues are going to be, but I really won't know until perhaps later this week what the actual tax levies are going to be, which ultimately drives the TID revenues.
Okay.
So it's yeah, it's just it's a variance there, and I continually try to be diligent and giving it my best guess, but there's just going to be some variances. It's not nothing incorrect other than the fact that we have to use an estimate when we're preparing the budget.
Okay. I thought it'd be worth going through the capital projects section, but I don't know if anybody else has questions. President Rozak?
Thank you. I just have two. For leaf collection, I just realized, because I looked at the manager's memo and there was a clause in leaf collection. In 2018, the actuals were 176,000 plus. 2019, it was 192,000. Does anyone remember, Mark, especially why in 2020 we budgeted 147,000, which was 50,000 less than actuals?
I don't have any specific recollection of that, other than my general tendency to look at a little longer term trends and try not, we try not to overcompensate for, challenging years. And I mean, it's kind of like winter operations, you know what the average is, but on any given year, depending if it's, you can get heavy snow in January and heavy snow in December, which ends up being the same fiscal year. And then January, if we're heavy or light, it's, again, we really just try to look at the averages. The thing that I always try to focus on is those aggregate totals. We know what our total number of staff positions are, and they just get spread out in different areas depending on exactly how many resources are needed to commit to those different areas. And I know there were some mechanical problems last year that created some real challenges for our public works department, which
right. which was the highest. The actuals last year were 192, which was 20,000 more than 18. So, okay, I was just wondering if there was if we remember a rationale, and does that contribute to the fact of why we had to suspend selection?
I believe if you're talking about last year,
I thought it was this year. We were bagging up some leaves.
I think that has more to do with staff availability. I haven't been really looped in on a lot of those discussions yet, but
Yeah,
half
that
of the
was,
DPW is
yeah.
out because of COVID, so
Okay.
Right.
So no, not budgetary related. Okay, thank you. I'll just be looking for that number for tonight. I can't remember. I just want to cross-reference it. And then my second and last question, I'm frantically trying to scroll to get to it, and I don't know if I'm gonna make it. In the police department budget, the salaries it looked like pretty on par. Does anyone have it right in front of them? And can you just tell me for projected versus adopted budget for 2020?
well, there's a note in the summary talking about police staff costs being about $60,000
Yep,
of
no,
the budget this year. If that's the number you're looking for.
if that's the difference, yes. I was actually just trying to look in the budget. I saw it before, but okay. I can't get to it, so I don't need to ask my question. Thank you.
And you can certainly, again, any questions of anybody has, you can always email me offline as well, and I can do a little more investigation.
You know, on looking over the budget, we have so many sub budgets for DPW. Do we really need so many sub budgets? And I mean, I can see winter maintenance you would want to keep track of separately. But don't you think we could, just for simplicity's sake, combine some of the other ones?
Well, I asked that same question in I think my second or third year here, and we have combined a number of divisions. The goal of the budget, though, is also to provide information on the amount of money spent providing different types of services for the board to consider, as well as upon occasion, there are various grant opportunities that require us to track some of these costs by these areas. So as the Public Works Director has informed me that they really do want to keep the divisions pretty much as we've got them now. We did some consolidation a few years ago, but any further consolidation would generate other challenges when we have different grant opportunities, or we try to present information to the board about various service delivery costs.
I agree with Trustee Amenta. It's very confusing for me in my 5 years, the DPW budget, because sometimes you'll see like in one division, it goes way over in staff costs, and then the other division it's under. And every time we've ever talked every year about it, it's like, well, you're looking, you have to combine them all to figure that out. And so I do agree that I don't know how many grants we've received based on the breakout of the budget in divisions, but there are overlapping services. And so I do agree that less would be better in the future. It's very difficult to understand as a legislator for me.
It is challenging, yes. That's one of the reasons we developed the summary page, though, to try to help address some of that. But even that only represents the allocation between the general fund, and then you have other costs in the water and sewer utilities. So yeah, it's a very challenging process.
I did want to point out on page 6 that we budgeted to have a total fund balance of $6,049,000. 4.1 million of that is unassigned. That was in our budget. And now, that's pretty sound, because of projections, because of where, we had a good year and we've gotten the CARES Act funding and various other things, we have additional like 300,000 in fund balance, and most of that's unassigned. So I just wanted to point this out in preparation for our discussion of the final budget, that every year is different, and some years come in better than others, and that even though it's COVID and 2020 and a crappy year all around, at least for the village budget, we, because of good stewardship, and I have to credit Mark and Rebecca with that in particular, we are coming out better than we had anticipated when we budgeted in 2020. So our reserves are in very, very good shape at 36.6% of our total revenues for the year. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
2020
and
before we
on a
start talking about-
related note, if you haven't had an opportunity to check your trustee emails in the last 2 hours, I did put together a summary talking about our general fund reserves that was sent to all the trustees that may aid in conversations later this evening. So please make sure to check that if you haven't checked that.
All right, we have 9 minutes left. Is there anything, where are capital projects? Are they before the water utility?
Page 38.
I
Is
found,
there anything? Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. I did find the line finally. So in the police department, it just says adopted budget was for salaries and wages, 2,022,750, and then projected is 2 million. So it's only a difference of 22,750. And I'm just wondering what the $60,000 savings above, what line that falls under, if it's not salary and wages, that's above the vacancy factor.
Staff costs include like the first 12 line items of that budget, includes benefits, and includes overtime. So all those line items together, about $60,000 favorable to budget.
Okay. So
I said staff costs, and I know what I meant, but I know when I say staff costs, it's some people would interpret that just salaries, and I apologize for that. I'll be a little more thorough in my description next time through that includes all the benefit costs all the way through.
Okay, I still don't see that, but I will trust you. The first 6 lines don't show that amount if you add them together as a savings, but I can take it offline. I just wanted to point that out.
All right, thank you.
I did want to talk about, we have 7 minutes left, capital projects budget, because that one can be a little confusing with the bond proceeds.
What page is that, Trustee Menta?
Page 38 of the budget report. So we had not budgeted for the police study, but we did fund that. And we funded parking implementation. So so village-wide initiatives were over, but then I guess the big one that was way under, the police garage phase 2B, which I'm a little confused about that unless it's a carryover thing from last year, because I didn't think they were that much under budget, were they?
No, but part of that was reported in 2019 for the design costs, yes.
Okay, and then the major projects is the other one. We had budgeted 3 million, it came in 700,000 under budget, the local road program. So was that just came in lower than we had thought, or I don't remember.
That's my general understanding is when we did the budget, we had an estimate of what those costs were going to be, and the favorable bids were received. So
I did appreciate how you put, I think at the bottom of here, there's somewhere, I don't know where it is now, where you identified leftover bond funds. What page was that on? Maybe that's higher up.
I think that was actually in the 2021 budget, not in the third quarter financial report.
Okay, right, because that's the other aspect that's a little confusing if we have something on the capital projects list. That's because we have the cash funded capital projects and then we have bond funded capital projects in there. They're mushed together, so sometimes that's a little confusing. Any other questions on capital Trustee Ursink?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the solar panel installation that's under building improvements? I'm assuming that's is that attached to the police station, or is that what's that?
Sure, that was originally proposed to be a part of the police project, and the supplier backed out of the deal. In simple terms, We've always had concerns about putting solar panels on top of that building because of the tower and the ice fall in the winter damaging those panels. And for many months, they said, no worries, no worries, no worries. And then when it came time to execute the deal, they had worries and they couldn't proceed with the project.
On that note, have you guys thought it's strange that we're trying to build these like multi-million-dollar condo units right in that space because of that ice that falls is just like always seems to be a problem. And you're paying $700,000 for a condo. Isn't that going to be an issue for those condos down there?
It may be. Again, that's private development, so we don't get much into that.
Not a problem.
But
Okay.
they get it. That's why they buy insurance. All righty. And then, okay, so in DPW vehicles, what that 170,000 for truck 55? We didn't buy truck 55.
We did, but we're not going to get it in 2020, and that was carried forward in the 2021 budget. So it's just advanced through reserves left over from this year because I can't record that expenditure until we take delivery, and we don't think we're going to get it right now until 2021 in January probably.
Trustee Carpenter, go ahead.
The stump grinder was just a less expensive option.
One of your
my
favorite
pieces of equipment.
Yeah, they ended up finding a suitable piece of equipment for less than they thought they were going to. So that's a favorable outcome.
Okay, great.
You know what might be useful is like to take each of these categories like DPW vehicles and show like when it was budgeted, what its revenue is. And then like for this one, because we budgeted it in 19, but we're not actually receiving it till 21, for the DPW vehicle. So if there was this I find is the most confusing part of the budget is keeping track of all this. And you really would need to put it as a separate thing with the multiple years in there to see, like, the revenue's here, but we're not going to book the expense until here. Yeah, Jessica.
Keeps me pretty busy as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
For like situations like that, which I've noticed, I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened with like a couple of big purchases like this. Do we just keep those funds liquid or, because it's like $150,000. Do we, I'm just wondering, like, could we earn any money on it? Is there, and I don't know, I don't know if that's worth exploring, but I'm just wondering if it just sits in an account for 2 years and.
No, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things I do is make sure that anything that we don't need within 60 days for operating cash flow, which includes a certain amount of these capital purchases, is invested in some manner, either through longer term holdings or through the local government investment pool where we do earn some earnings on that. And then only the amount of funds we need for operations and accounts payable, those types of things, payroll, I'll move funds into the village bank account as needed. So we always try to keep those monies that we're not currently using in an interest-bearing account.
So, okay. So like, a large purchase like that, because I think this was from 2019 and, that's 2 years of earning,
Well, when it says from 2019, I think that refers to the original request. It was, and then now we've ordered it in January or February, and now it's about taking delivery. So yeah, these bigger pieces of equipment can take a long time to be delivered from the time you place the order. So yeah.
I did have a question about our investments that we have. We have almost $6.5 million. Now, I don't know if this just happens to be as of this date, September 30th, but it says North Shore Bank. We have $6.46 million invested there. And I know we've had this discussion previously about them charging us per deposit and various bank charges. And I don't know if this is just this particular moment in time, but that's a pretty hefty chunk of change.
Yeah, that is much larger than would normally be there.
Okay.
We got the bond proceeds from our 2021 C bonds right at the end of September. So I did not have an opportunity to shift that to an interest-bearing account before the end of the month. Yeah,
Okay.
normally that would be somewhere between a million, million five is as much as I would normally keep in North Shore Bank.
Okay, super. All right. If there's any other questions or comments on third quarter, okay, then I'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Budget Finance Committee. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so we'll move on to business and community relations. And I will let Steph Salvia talk about the operating plan, 2021 operating plan.
Oh, my video is having trouble. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do without video then. I promise I even showered for you guys today. Huh.
It's
Okay,
a good picture though.
thanks. Oh wait, there, let's see. There, yay. Okay, so from last time, really the only changes I made to the operating plan were to kind of update my plans with the nonprofit, just because we just weren't ready to kind of launch the nonprofit at all. So it's there, but it won't be utilized for the 2021 operating year. I don't think there's really, excuse me, anything else that I've changed in there. You'll see this, kind of the standard introduction, our objectives, our proposed, I have my fingers crossed, our proposed events for 2021. I don't know if that's going to happen, but yeah, go ahead.
That was actually one of my questions was, I'm cautiously optimistic with Moderna's announcement today, but I don't know,
I know.
I don't know if March feels, gosh, Arthur or Trustee Ursink, it feels a little deja vu.
Remember that? I know. We're getting close to that date where we talked about the shenanigans.
Yeah.
I know. And it's like, the other thing for me is like, how do I, for fundraising for an event and getting sponsorships and stuff, it's like, how do I do that? So, that's actually something that's on our bid board agenda, because we have a contract for the Tour of America's Dairyland races, and they want us to give them like a drop dead date by, I think they said March 1st. And I'm like, I don't really know how I can give you guys a clear yes or no. Like, I just don't even know how that's possible. And the hitch is they added in a clause this year that basically says if the event is unable to happen, that the bid would still owe 15%, and they would use that towards other like marketing for the district. And they did do some marketing for us this year. I mean, they did some little biking bingo cards and stuff like that, but yeah, it's going to be a little, it's going to be another kind of interesting year there. So
Can I ask, Trustee Ursink?
Yep.
I was talking right to Steph, so I apologize. But I just had a question about the bid and the board of directors. So, because I think you guys shuffled some positions around, and then so Trustee Ursink, you're the liaison, but then I think that there should be one additional person on the bid, because I think there's, and maybe I'm wrong, but were the bylaws supposed to have 14 people
So I'm
plus the
going to stay
liaison?
on as a bid member.
Okay, got
yeah,
it.
so Arthur will act as a bid board member and as the liaison, so that if he, liaisons seem to get reappointed every year-ish. I'm not actually totally sure on how often they're reappointed. But if he maintains his position on the bid board, then he can serve out his term. And the bylaws say we can have up to 14. So with Arthur, we have 14. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was just a little bit unclear that I didn't realize, sorry, Arthur, that you were staying on, just not in the presidential role. So then, but then I think, doesn't I'm just wondering, does the liaison get a vote? Because then there's an additional person, because then you could potentially be at a tie for everything.
I would probably abstain from my liaison vote. I remember Ann McCaig never voted. Well, when she was first on the board, and then you got on the board, and then you were the first trustee liaison that voted on matters. So I'd probably just revert to not voting as the trustee liaison.
And voting as the bid board
Just
member.
voting as a bid board member.
Well, and that was interesting to me to see in our bylaws an even number. I thought that was a little different because usually, you know, you have an odd number just in case there were to be a tiebreaker.
Well, and then I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume too that the odd number would be so that you have a quorum. Because you would
No, that doesn't have to do with odd or even numbers. That's just with like if you have to have a majority for sure, but.
right, but then you would have.
We
you would
need 7.
to have,
I think we need 7.
We need 7 for our bylaws.
Mhm.
okay.
I am having, I had talked or emailed Rebecca and Sarah to discuss the bylaws a little more, just because I've been going through and finding some inconsistencies that I would like to kind of get straightened out for the year. Because the term limits aren't in our bylaws and that sort of thing. So I just know that there does need to be some work done to make sure that we're operating under the mandates of the bylaws.
Do you, I mean, I'm just thinking sometimes it can be difficult for a trustee to have, like the trustee liaison is sort of a liaison, right? And it's a communication thing. And I mean, what would be the disadvantage of trustee Ursink staying on as a bid board member, but having another trustee as the liaison, you know, then doesn't that simplify things a little bit? Because
yeah, that'd be totally fine. There is I think there's still a confusion about the whether or not the liaison votes. Like, you know, in my head, it's the board members that have the voting responsibility, and like a liaison, like you said, Trustee Amenta is kind of the communications person between the two entities. So yeah, I mean, if that would be great, that would actually be probably helpful.
yeah, it is odd because like I'm on library board and I don't have a vote on the library board, but you know, other ones, the CDA, we do vote. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It's not consistent, that's
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
then parks,
Yeah.
I'm on parks and I don't vote on parks,
Right.
but I do vote as the bid. So there is some inconsistencies there, and I was, you know, it'd be nice to figure that all out.
Yeah, because when I was the bid liaison, I had asked that question and I was told that I did vote. So I don't know what
I know.
where the like
And
discrepancies are and
Yeah.
how we get that resolved.
And
Yeah.
like I said, Ann never voted, so you know.
So maybe like when moving forward here, as I dig into these bylaws a little more, we can actually then add in maybe how the liaison would interact with the bid, because then it's all there, it's all laid out for us. And
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think that'd be worth doing. My question was also about the events, and you know, we've had issues in the past where like we really need a master calendar, you know, because like someone will come and the Packers party, I remember, came the same weekend as something else. I can't even remember what, frankly. And you know, sometimes like we don't, like I'm not going to remember that the 24th is the races, and someone may come and say, can I close Oakland on the 25th or the 23rd? And so I think when that happened last year, we were like, wow, we really need like a master calendar. And I didn't know, like, is that something that the village clerk needs to do, or the bid can do, or how, because I know we're the ones granting the closing the street permit, not the bid. But anyway, do you have any ideas on that?
I mean, whatever you guys think would be the most helpful. Yeah, I guess if I sent stuff to the clerk, Is there, do you guys have a master calendar just right on the village website? I don't know if I've ever noticed.
We do, but it's kind of just, Tyler, are you still on the meeting, Tyler? Where is he? Bart's there. Where's Tyler? I see his name, but he's not responding. This is like what my kids do in high school. Like, it looks like they're attending.
Mine too.
He's busted.
Bart,
Um,
how are you?
Something to look
I have a
forward to.
calendar, but it's mostly for public meetings. So I don't know that that's the most comprehensive place for community events and stuff like that, but it is out there. We do maintain it individually. So, right, if I have plan commission, I'll put that on myself, or if Tyler has HRC, kind of stuff like that. So probably the clerk would put the bid events on as they're approved by the board, but not probably proactively. So if you know the feast is going to be a certain weekend, we probably wouldn't have that on the calendar until that's actually approved. But if the bid knows they want it on that weekend, it might be nice, to trustee Menta's point, to have that identified somewhere in some master thought process. But
Yeah.
I think it goes on there currently until it's actually approved.
Okay.
Well, Bart, like if you're having a public meeting about the comprehensive plan or something, how do you, I mean, well, I guess you could look and see if a meeting room is open or not to know if there's something else scheduled, but I mean.
Yeah, I typically send that out to department heads to make sure that they don't have any conflicts that they would see with their committees. And so just internally, administration, reviews that, but there is nothing master that I would even reference. I would just say, I'm looking at a meeting December 1st. Does anyone see any conflicts with that? If not, then I schedule it. But there really isn't currently a master place for that. So if the bid does know when their events are going to take place, I guess just communicating that as early as practical would make sense.
That's the key for this year again, huh?
Right. And I think Becky does a good job of, maintaining and sending that stuff out on either Friday updates or things like that. And we have
Yeah.
annual calendar that I think we can put stuff on. So I think she's been pretty good at, keeping track of those things if we know them.
I think, yeah, like we have the concerts in the park. I mean, we have a lot of summer events, and then we did get into trouble last summer of having a request for something, and I think we had it we already approved the Packer party, right? And then
It was the
Other
feast,
round.
I think.
I don't
Was
remember
other
what
round.
the confusion was, but
Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was-
I
think
didn't
the
get to do
feast-
any this year.
The feast
it's
was on that Saturday, and then the Packer party was that Sunday morning.
Yep.
So we
Yep.
were closing down the street. We were closing everything off of those two, kind of the 2 days.
so it
Oh.
was in 19 or it was in 19, right?
Yeah.
Not 20. Yeah.
Back when life was good.
Well, anyway, I think we need a calendar. I don't know who needs to do it, but especially maybe just for the summer months, because what's going on in the winter, but maybe just like March through October,
That's a great idea.
Okay, I'm done.
That's a great idea.
I had a question about the feast because I saw that it was on September 11th, and fingers crossed that it will be on September 11th. But is there, obviously that day is very significant, but is there any plans, or maybe you're not there yet, but I just thought that could be a nice thing to kind of tie into the feast in some way.
Oh, right.
Of honoring September 11th.
Yeah, I mean, we'd happily build, something in there for that for sure. If this, if we're able to move forward with it for sure.
That's
Yeah.
a good idea. Okay, do you guys have any other questions?
So on the vacancy process, I mean, this paragraph, I got a little confused. So the terms are now, linked to everybody, all the other ones expiring May 31st. And so the bid has a nominating committee that go through the village's volunteer application. And then, but then it's the same thing. The nominating committee nominates to the bid board, and the bid board forwards those names to the village president, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But we just have a volunteer application on file for everyone who, yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
So it is, so it's 7:15. We have 15 minutes before our meeting. If there's no other questions, should we take this 15-minute break here and then reconvene at 7:30?
Sure.
Yep, Bart.
I think we'd be looking for a recommendation from the committee to take to the board for tonight's action. So if someone's willing to make a motion and vote on that, I think that's the expectation, that we would have an update at the board meeting on how you guys, took the revised plan.
Sure.
I mean, I did want to ask about the nonprofit. So you're still going to keep working on it this year, or? Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep working on it. We need to nail down board members and what it should be used for and how, and there were just a lot of unknowns, like timing wise. It was just too hard to try to like put it all together super last minute. So we'll for next year's operating plan, I would like to have a more formal kind of presentation of it and how it might work, and get recommendations for other board members and that sort of thing too. So
I mean, you can come in the middle of the year too. You don't have to wait till the operating plan, right?
okay.
I just want to come communicate about it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it'd be nice to not get to this point next year and run into this sort of thing as well. So maybe we come back earlier and just kind of work out those kinks with the board and then make sure it's approved or getting close to approval for the operating.
Yeah,
plan.
I mean, I think most people thought it was a good idea. I don't think there was feeling like it shouldn't be done. It was more just, the detail.
Yeah.
Devil's in the details. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to make a motion? Sorry, Jessica.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Trustee-
sorry. I was going to make, that's okay. I was going to make a motion. I move to approve the bids operating plan as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yay!
Congratulations, Steph. You could sleep.
Yay!
Well, not yet. There's
Aye.
still a few more months in 2020. so.
Exactly.
It's on full. Isn't it on full board this week?
Yeah, it's still,
Don't
yeah.
leave yet.
I know.
Sleep with one eye open. No. Okay, so do we need to make a motion then to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
You guys have the same, I'm so sorry. Is it the same link for the full board meeting?
No.
It is not. So you will have to leave this link and go to the full board meeting link.
Okay.
Fantastic. Cool. All right. See you guys in 15 minutes.